Now that I think that I have a pressing and grading process for comic books, I need to find more books to submit to my queue. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up an order that I just placed very recently with Mile High Comics. It's a 10 book order, and it's a mixture of, I think, typical books that I get. You'll see a nice variety, but probably some repeat offenders in this order. But the more important and exciting thing for me at this point is I think I finally have all of my comic book queues set up for categorization, inventory, personal collection, grading, pressing, and so forth. And I've been talking about establishing these queues in the past where it makes sense that certain books will go to a particular presser or might go straight to CGC, and depending on the book's condition and the year and the age and so forth and just the quality of the book, then I'll kind of decide which tier of CGC grading I want to submit the book to. And I have all of these like wildly different lanes of comic books where I have everything in my mind, I guess, architected and set up and designed the way that I want. But I've been really slow, or some might call lazy, to really implement these cues. And I think that it's taken me several years to establish and set this up. A lot of trial and error that you witnessed here on my channel. Hopefully, you've learned from my mistakes. I feel like I have as well. And now it's time to actually really start putting comic books into the proper queues and executing the process. And right now, I'm in a really good spot where I have multiple submissions out to CGC for pre-screens that I've just submitted myself. And then if there are books that don't meet my own pre-screen, then I figure out what am I going to do with those books. And I have several books out with a couple of different pressers. I'm waiting to get those books back from CGC, but right now they're still in transit to CGC, so I want to make sure that those books are received and in CGC's queue before I load up my presser's queue once again. Now, while I wait for confirmation of these orders being received at CGC and some of my pre-screens to go through the process at CGC so that I can get those books back, what I end up doing is building up my queues here so that I can get my next shipments off to my pressers when I'm ready to send the books off. And what I want to do is I want to unbox this order and give you kind of a rough idea of the different queues that I'm putting my books in and why I'm putting books in those queues. And a lot of it has to do with condition, yes, but also looking at the expense of pressing and grading. And I've done this in the past, but I've spent some time recently going through analyzing my data, my collections, my values, and coming up with a new system to prioritize which books should go off for pressing and cleaning or straight for grading. Or this analysis will tell me you're better off just keeping the book as is, putting it into your PC raw, and enjoying it there, as there's no additional point or value to putting it into one of these queues that I've been talking about. So let me get to the unboxing. I want to show you the great comics that I picked up. I'm really excited about this order. 10 books from Mile High Comics. Really nice variety of books. So let's take a look at what I got. And then maybe as you're watching me unbox, just think about what queues you would put these books in terms of cleaning, pressing, grading, PC. Maybe you might want to sell some. Maybe you don't care about any of the books that I picked up, so you'd say just get rid of all of them. But I'd love to get your feedback on this order and kind of like, does this make you start to think about different queues rather than just keeping them in a pile behind you or in various bins? Like how, it's a real fun but laborious task of really cataloging everything properly so that you can really tell at the snap of your fingers, like, this is exactly the book that I want to do something with. Slab, grade, sell, and so forth. So once and for all, finally, let's get to the unboxing. All right, here is the shipment that I received from Mile High Comics, shipped via FedEx. I always choose FedEx when I'm ordering from Mile High Comics. You have the option to choose USPS or FedEx. I always choose FedEx. There's no additional charge for it. I love to unlock free shipping from Mile High Comics. It's a great way to, again, kind of reduce the, I would say, mile high prices that kind of reduces the sticker shock, I guess. But what was interesting about this order too is I placed this order 5 days ago. It was processed the same day and shipped out the next day, and then arrived a day ago, a couple days ago. I mean, it was just maybe it's this time of year towards the end of 2023. We're getting into the holiday season. Maybe Mile High and FedEx are kind of escalating their process, and maybe they haven't been hit with the full-on holiday rush yet, but nevertheless, really cool. Less than a week for me to place this order and have the order back in my hands, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up. All right, not too bad. Pretty straightforward. I love the consistency from Mile High Comics. I know they get kind of a bad reputation for their prices, but I think if you stay to the end of this unboxing video and you look at the order summary, yes, I'm paying a premium for these books being in high grade. I completely understand that. But over time, what ends up happening as I go through my collection, if I take down a bin off the shelf and I go through and I finger it, I think that what ends up happening is I remember the books that I got from Mile High. I really appreciate the fact that these books are in high grade. And I found recently when I was going through the analysis that I was talking about in terms of determining which books should be the next ones I send off for pressing or grading or both, a lot of times the books that rose to the top of my analysis, they were books that I picked up from Mile High. And mind you, what I'm doing is, and I'll kind of explain this a little bit later, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the way that I prioritize the book is what has the largest value margin based on the overall cost. So what I paid to buy the book at Mile High, the pressing services, fees, grading fees, shipping, and all of that, and then which books have the best potential to add value to my collection if I were to get those graded. It's kind of what I do on a case by case with my order summaries, but then you could really think about order summaries stacked on top of each other, and we're talking about dozens or now even hundreds of orders. So out of all of those orders and order summaries, when I show you which books have the most potential to add the most value to my collection, it's like, well, that's great for one order, but how do I do it across 1,000 orders? So that's kind of what I've been working on. And you've been staring at a blank comic book backing board, and I apologize as I rambled about that, and I should have saved that for later. But I just wanted to kind of preview, what my thought process here is here. But right now, the best part is the comics themselves. Let's get to those and show you what I picked up. The first book, and I'll actually maybe do these in tandem here because these do sort of go together. This is Astonishing X-Men #4, and this is the variant cover featuring Colossus, and then this is Astonishing X-Men #4, cover A, also known as the Beast cover. But these two books in particular, they were getting some attention because there's a new X-Men series that is coming up that is featuring the character Armor. And Armor makes her first appearance in Astonishing X-Men #4 from 2004. And Armor is a character that essentially creates armor for herself. She's able to create a psionic exoskeleton around herself. I hate to admit this, but I'm also a Marvel Snap mobile app game player. I play that game every day. Armor is a character that's in the game, and she's not necessarily maybe a top tier character, but she is very common when you're trying to protect your own cards or protect your strategy against players that are using decks where they're destroying a lot of cards. So I use the Armor card quite a bit. It's a little bit of a weird way for me to be really interested in these books. I think first and foremost, if I'm being honest, I'm always interested in value. And I'm not suggesting that when a book appears on a hot list that it needs to be purchased. But what I do is if it has been driven up in value because of one of those hot lists, and there's an outlet that maybe I feel like has the book underpriced for what's going on in the market, then if there's enough of a gap, then I make the purchase. That's the basis of really all of my purchases. But when I read the reason, it was like the first appearance of Armor. It's like, oh, I've really gotten to know that character through the Marvel Snap mobile game. And yeah, I'm addicted to that game and won't get into that anymore. It's quite embarrassing. But I wanted to grab these two books. These are easy to find. Probably could get them a lot cheaper elsewhere. They both look to be in pretty good shape. Here's the bottom corners. This one has a little bit of whitening. I don't know if I can peel that back with my finger to see if that kind of folds back. This one has just a little bit of rounding right there. So 9.4, 9.6, but again, I want them in the highest grade possible. Relatively inexpensive when comparing to the rest of the books that I picked up in this order. So worth the risk there. Next is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 7. And this book features the first full appearance of Julia Carpenter, otherwise known as Spider-Woman, which is great. First full appearance, and there she is on the cover as well. And the Madam Web new Marvel related, I guess, Marvel licensed movie, that trailer just came out. And Julia Carpenter is going to be portrayed by Sydney Sweeney. And we got a shot of Sweeney in the Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman black and white costume in the trailer. And I purchased this before the trailer dropped, and then there was some interest on this book because of the appearance in the trailer. I still feel like we're really beyond those days of like, oh my gosh, a trailer and now books are spiking. I think there's still some occurrence of that, but it's extremely short-lived. So I imagine that, for a few days, this book will be on some lists and getting some attention, and then it'll just kind of drop back to where it was. But this one looks to be in tremendous shape. I'm looking at this corner. I don't necessarily see any issues. There's a little bit of a creasing right up there, but the spine looks intact, super strong, really nice corner, sharp corner down here. So this looks to be a great opportunity, maybe to just go through a standard press. I'll have to take a look at the back cover, but really vibrant, great colors here. Awesome shot of Captain America front and center with cover art by Bob Layton. So this might be in a queue that would go just for straight pressing and off to GC. Again, it kind of depends on what the potential is, the potential value add. And as you were staring at, I'm sure in the background here, I also picked up a copy of Secret Wars number 10 for really the only reason, which is the obvious, Doctor Doom right here. One of the best Doctor Doom covers of all time. Awesome cover by Mike Zeck. And still trying to figure out if I have a 9.8 candidate, as I don't have this one graded quite yet. There's always some sort of discoloration, just dirt or slight color rubbing right in here as well, in the Kirby Crackle. Soft corner down here, so this might not be it, but I feel like not only is this a great book, but the way that Mile High prices this book, whenever it gets back into stock, it's always in stock for the same price. And I think whenever I see it in stock, this always goes into my cart because I always feel like it's just a great buy for the price. So there it is, Secret Wars number 10. Next is Marvel Team Up number 76, a super cool Byrne and Austin cover. We've got the tarot cards here, book featuring Doctor Strange, Spider-Man swinging through the cover, very dynamic. And let's take a look at this book from 1978. And yeah, once again, I'm seeing, I would say this is probably typical bronze copperish condition. I know there's a glare there, but I'm trying to show you right there by my finger. There's a crease there and a crease there. So again, another great potential pressing candidate. Around the top, at least one, maybe two finger bends right up there. You can see at the very, very top edge. So that would have to be pressed out. Fortunately, there is a dog ear that breaks color right up there. So that basically kills its chance at a 9.8 because of the color break, but could still be a 9.4, 9.6. Slightly miswrapped, so not my favorite version that I have of this book. But these Marvel team-ups, they have really sneaky value. And they're also just fun books to read and collect. Story Inside by Chris Claremont. Next is Transformers #5. I love the Dinobots cover, but if this isn't my favorite Transformers cover of the run, then it could be the Dinobots cover. Issue 1 obviously is very recognizable, but this I just love, and I love being able to get this book anytime I can get it. Really, really cool painted cover, or at least it feels like a painted cover, and would love to get this in a 9.8. And just looking at the condition, it's not too bad. I see again a lot of non-color breaking ticks, and then I saw a couple of maybe hairline ticks. Hard to see. This is probably is what's going to keep it from being a 9.8, is right around the staple. You can see some color breaks that go right into the book. So this is, I was going to say 9.4, but it's probably closer to a 9 is probably where I'll end up grading it. There's a lot of creasing. Again, it would be worth a press, but is it worth pressing it into a 9.4? I'd have to look at the numbers, but still wanted to take a shot at that book. Next is World of Wood #1. And this is just kind of continuing my collection of Dave Stevens cover art. And you really can't get better than this. Zoom in a little bit. Just the intricate details and the really elegant blend of cartooning and realism here. I love it. It's hard to find a Dave Stevens cover that I don't like. And I've talked in the past about different tiers of Stevens books. This one's probably somewhere in the middle, like when you see what I paid for the book and see its values. It's not at the high end like Planet Comics, but not on the low end either, like Vanguard Illustrated. Pretty much right in the middle. Just giving it a quick glance at the condition. There is a little bit of wear in the top corner, but not much. Pretty sharp otherwise. Spine looks to be in great shape. And then down here is probably the iffy part. That's where I don't know if get punished for that soft corner. Probably would end up maxing at a 9.6, but still I would consider maybe even sending this one in to get the 9.6 just as a Stevens fan. I envision having a wall of books at some point with nothing but Stevens books, and what I'm going to end up doing is sending in the best copies that I have of these books graded. And it's just a matter of like, well, when do I do that? And it's, a lot of times it's when the Mile High supply runs dry. And then it's like once I start to see that, okay, there aren't any other copies available, there's no opportunity to buy these in the short term, then I'll kind of take a look at these books and see if I want to send them in. So this might be in the queue of just straight submission to CGC, no pre-screen, because sometimes it's just not worth going through the press and risking further damage to the book. A clean impress is not going to address that corner there. But still, I had not owned that book previously, so really happy to add that to my collection. This book I have owned in the past, and I just think it's one of the best writes and covers, and this is Swamp Thing #9 from DC Comics. It's got the 20-cent cover. Just absolutely love the framed cover, the whole design of this thing, the background, the colors, everything. Absolutely love it. To me, it should be a poster or a t-shirt even today. And I took a chance on this one. This was the most expensive book in the order, and just it was hard for me to pass up because I figured even if it got a 9.4 or something or in the realm, even a 9.2, it was worth the risk. Unfortunately, I'm looking at this corner here and just trying to eyeball it and see what's going on there, and I can't really tell if it's a tear or if it's blunted somehow. Probably would keep it, as I look at it a little bit closer, it looks like it's torn right there. Just a little bit of a tear coming around from the back to the front. Now, how much is that going to detract from the grade, kind of working backwards from a 9.8? I don't know. 9.4 is probably what I would say to be safe. There's some other general creasing, but I don't think this is anything less than a 9. Now, it does need some pressing to get some non-color breaking ticks. And the tough part with this one, too, is it's a pre-1975 book. And what that means is you're going to pay more at CGC. And then also, it's just a different, it's not that it's that different from a Bronze Age book in terms of how a presser would handle it, but it's just different. It's considered to be in the Silver Age tier, and I just don't know, do pressers sometimes charge you more for books based on era and things like that? And what I need to do is find some pre 1975 books because I want to submit them all together. And this might be an idea for yet another queue. Is a pre 1975 queue that either needs to go to CGC or should go out for pressing and cleaning. But another one that I think in any high grade, and I would consider, this 9.0 or above, would love to have a copy of this slabbed in my collection. One of, or if not my favorite, Swamp Thing covers. All right, two more books to go. This one, really affordable and a very attractive David Finch cover, Ex Infernus #1, featuring Magic as Darkchild. And again, this is this whole order is a combination of everything that's been going on for me recently. David Finch, keeping a lot of his work in the forefront of my mind and in my analysis. And I picked this up in the past and noticed that Mile High still had this in stock, so I wanted to grab another copy. And this looks to be in great condition, so I'm excited to grade this one and see if it could be a 9.8 candidate. Again, would either go into a pre-screen or off to one of my pressers for a quick press. I just love this David Finch cover of Ex Infernus #1. And then the last book, this book was getting hyped up quite a bit around Halloween, and I noticed that it hung around at Mile High, and this is Gore Shriek #1, Copper Age horror. It was pushed a lot in terms of undervalued or overlooked horror books. I mean, whatever you want to label it. The interesting note on this book is that it is the first interior art by Greg Capullo. This has cover art by Bruce Spalding Fuller and interiors by Capullo. And while my preference is to look at and collect Bronze Age horror, there's an entire market for sort of Copper Age / underground horror comics. Again, kind of got wrapped up into the Halloween fall themed sorts of books, and I had seen that book pop on a YouTube channel, Instagram, a couple other places. And again, it's all around building awareness. And when I started to analyze whether or not that would be a good pickup for Mile High Comics, I went ahead and took a shot at it. So those are the books. Again, just a wide array, a full spectrum of really the books that I love to collect. But it's time to look at the order summary for these so that I can figure out how am I going to really sort these 10 books, and am I going to put them in any of the queues that I've been talking about to determine whether or not I can add even more value to my collection. So let's take a look at the numbers. All right, here are the order details for the order that I placed with Mile High Comics on November 14th, 2023. Like I said, super fast turnaround from them. Absolutely love it. And I was invoiced $262.80. And what I ended up doing was breaking down the total cost here in column Z. And I was only charged $8 insurance. I unlocked free shipping, which I would hope for an order this large. And then I just distributed the $8 across all the books here, summed them up, and if my math is right, which it is in this case, $262.80 for this order so that I can see the true cost of each book. Now in column U, I have the cover price fair market value, which is either the near mint value or the largest value in any grade, because for some reason, depending on recent sales and how they categorize books by condition, sometimes books in lesser grade have a higher current value. So I just take the greater of the two until I put in the actual grades. So if I want to see if I added any raw value to my collection, what I've done here in column AA is determine based on my cost, and if I compare it to the current raw fair market value in column U, have I made a good purchase? And of course, I try to do as much analysis beforehand. The market values change from time to time, but you can see even from a raw value book perspective, I have added over $100 to my collection. Now, this is really being carried by two books in particular. Again, just looking at the raw fair market value, and I would use air quotes around it because The cover price values, they are what they are. It gives you a general ballpark idea, but there's a lot of other factors when we're talking about raw books. I completely understand. But really, Gore Shriek #1 was just a book that I couldn't pass up. I spent $34 to acquire that book, and cover price has that raw at $77. Marvel Team Up number 76 was the other big winner. I paid $18.80 for that book from 1978 in high grade, and it has a fair market value of $49. Swamp Thing #9 being the most expensive, I spent $68 to acquire that book. It has a fair market value of $78 for a nice $10 value add. And Ex Infernus #1, the cheapest book in the order at $6, has a fair market value of $18. So a nice $12 value add there. Even The World of Wood, the second most expensive book in the order, was a positive gain. Couple of negatives though. Transformers was almost an $8 loss, as I paid $24.80 for that $17 book. And then Astonishing X-Men was one of those where I knew that the Beast cover, the cover A, was the better value, but then again got caught up in the whole first appearance of Armor thing and went, you know what, I'll just get one of each so that I just have them. $5.20 loss on that, but still overall a nice $105.20 value add across the entire order. I don't particularly like to buy books from Mile High Comics thinking that I'm going to add a lot of value from the raw book perspective. I typically, because they are in high grade, look to consider getting the books graded. So what I look for is potential if I were to send them off to CGC. And the way that I do that is you'll see in column AB, I have the CGC value, and you have to plug in the grades to kind of determine whether or not these would have value if they were sent off to CGC. And because they're all near mint, I can safely plug in 9.4 because that's what everybody says is near mint, 9.4, even though everybody kind of makes up their own rules as far as what's near mint, because they either don't know how to grade or online stores have such a huge range for near mint. They kind of dips into the eights. Nevertheless, I'll stick with 9.4. And you can see here the CGC value of these books, if I were to blindly send them all off to CGC, and they all came back 9.4 because they're all advertised as near mint, then it would still be a nice positive $50 ad. Now, there are some negatives in here, but Secret Wars #10 in a 9.4, $84. Secret Wars #7, the one with Spider-Woman that's getting all the hype, $2 less than 10 at 82 for a $31 positive ad there. Gore Shriek #1, again, there's just so much potential with that book. It, along with Swamp Thing 9, are the two books that are over $100 in a 9.4. So a $35 value add there potential. $9 in the Swamp Thing #9. And again, the CGC value, remember, it's not just what I paid for the book, it's what I paid plus any other fees to get the book graded. It does not include pressing fees because that, I think, depends on the collector. If you might want to press your own books or use somebody else, then the prices vary. But the CGC price is pretty fixed at this point, roughly $30 per book, let's just say. So that's kind of where you can see the math is. So a $68 acquisition cost, and then another $30 of fees, making it a $98 investment, give or take a dollar or two for some other shipping fees and so forth. Just kind of rounding it up to like $100 total investment for that book in a 9.4, or you could just buy it slabbed and secure it already in that grade at $109. But nevertheless, there it is, a $9 value add. Now, why don't I just buy these outright in 9.4 as well? It's because of the potential. I don't expect all of these books to get a 9.8, but it's certainly fun just to see what if they did. And you can see here that if all of these books did come back as a 9.8, then the ceiling for this order is sitting at $1,789. Not too bad for a $262.80 investment. Now, again, I don't believe all of these to be a 9.8, but what I'd like to see is what is the potential of these books if they were in the highest grade. And you can see Marvel Team Up at $528 as potential value at a 580 CGC value at 9.8. And that's why I bought the book. It had such a strong high value in a 9.8 that I wanted to go ahead and take the risk. It is worth it to me to, for $19 essentially, take a gamble that this could be a 9.8 candidate. Lots of other standouts in this order. Again, Gore Shriek, number one. You'd have to have the right audience to sell that book to if you were going to slab it and sell it $361, or just understand you're adding a really nice high grade copy of a Copper Age horror book to your collection that has a lot of value and potential there, which is awesome. Swamp Thing, number nine, from 1974, coming in under Gore Shriek number one at $351 in a 9.8. World of Wood at $166 in a 9.8. And keep in mind, like, take a look at the CGC fair market value and then what I paid for the book so that you can see the potential, right? This is why I'm trying to pick up these books, because I feel like I want to add the most potential value as possible. Secret Wars number 10 is over $200 in a 9.8, and I paid $12.80. So I feel like it is worth the risk to purchase these books at the price that I'm paying, but you also have to give your books a chance. And what I mean by giving your books a chance is you have to acquire them in high grade. And I feel like, as somebody that purchases almost 100% exclusively online, Mile High Comics is as close as I'm going to get for the age of these books and getting them in high grade. So I have to pay more of a premium for these books, and I'm not just kind of flashing them up quickly on a live claim sale and just saying, yeah, great Marvel team up book, $20, and it's really like a 4 or 5. These books all are in that 8.5 to 9.4 range, with some potentially being higher or needing a little bit of comic book TLC and CPR to get them pushed up closer to a 9.8. Now, that was the order. It is what it is. Lots of interesting different queue options. I think I see several that I want to go ahead and send off for pressing almost right away and get them submitted over to CGC as well, just because the potential is tremendous. But I wanted to also show you a different worksheet, and this is the worksheet I was talking about, where I have taken all of these order summaries and turned them into information that I use to determine which books I should send off for pressing and cleaning. So here is the worksheet. I won't go into too much detail here, but what I do is these are all of the books that I've purchased over the years, and it has my total costs. It's basically a subset of the worksheet that I was reviewing with you in terms of the order summary. And the short version is, if we move all the way over to the right, what I want to figure out, and you can kind of model your own analysis after mine. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this format, but I can just tell you what I'm trying to do is think about this AGB potential, standing for average grade bump potential. And what I've done is I've taken, let's say, a book that, these are all in kind of the high nines, but let's say we've got this 8.0 here on row 20. What I was doing is I was like, this book I had marked that I think it was eligible for pressing. And then I used to track the 9.8, and the 9.8 of this book has a current fair market value of over $1,000 in a 9.8. But is it really going to go from 8 to 9.8? I don't think so. So what I've decided to do is let's track the values using 3 different grade bumps. In this case, so if it goes from an 8 to an 8.5, it will jump from, if you're looking in column L, from $188 to $210. If it goes to a 9.0, $312, and a 9.2 is $396. So I feel like in general, when you're pressing your own books or sending them out for press, it doesn't really matter, but if you're looking for those grade bumps, and that's why you're pressing books, you're trying to improve the condition, I feel like it's probably fair to consider 3 grade bumps being the max. Yes, there are plenty of stories of somebody, I'm sure, where it's like, look, I turned this 5.0 into a 9.8. Oh, I'm super shocked and surprised and happy. Like, if that really was happening, I mean, that's a miracle if that happens. So take all of those stories kind of with a grain of salt, and they're probably just more for entertainment purposes. The reality is, you're either going to get the book back at the same grade or get 1 or 2 bumps, and then in an extreme case, maybe a third grade bump. And that's what I just put together here. So what I end up doing is I'm saying, okay, for this 8.0, it has an average grade bump value of $306.33. It's just the average of these three because I don't know ultimately what kind of improvement this is going to get. And then I take the average grade bump, and this time I do subtract pressing and cleaning fees on top of the CGC fees, on top of what I paid for the book to see what is my AGB potential. And this list is sorted top to bottom by the books that have the most average grade bump potential all the way to the least, so that I can figure out, is it worth my time? Is it worth my money to further invest in this book? This book we were looking at, by the way, is Amazing Spider-Man 316. I spent $82 to acquire that book in an 8.0. It currently has a fair market value of $188. And yes, I can hear people screaming at me through the video, send ASM 316 off for pressing and CGC submission to see what you get there. And I would love to. I can't wait, because even if I were able to get the 316 8.0 condition improved up into a 9, you're talking about an additional $100 of value there. So this is where I need information like this to help me figure out which books to handle and how to put them in these different queues. So there you go. There's a little more insight into the madness that is comic book collecting and value analyzing that I do. I love all of it. It's super fun. The great thing about creating a spreadsheet, it's free. I don't have to spend a dime. I don't have to spend any kind of pressing grading fees. I don't have to buy supplies. It's just fun to go through the numbers and really have an understanding of what is in your inventory and have a good understanding of what you're spending your money on. It's not just about the investment side and speculation side of comic books. It's about spending your money wisely. We all have budgets. We all spend money on various different things for entertainment purposes. And what I like to do with whatever I spend my money on is really understand where it's going, and is it worth it to spend the money here versus over here. It's not always about getting the most return or the most value, but understanding, am I spending my money wisely? Let me know what you think about this new bit of analysis or the books that I picked up in this order. This one was not really your straightforward superhero or Marvel or DC type of order. They're kind of all over the place, so I'd love to get your feedback on some of the books I picked up. Thanks for watching, happy collecting, and see you next time.